The last section of accounting management is the accounting variables section. An accounting variable is a data value that can be used in the charge logic formulas, which are then used inside the settlement rate sheets and the invoice rate sheets. So an accounting variable is basically a value that you're going to set that is used in the charge logic. And LoadCall comes with a bunch preloaded in, depending on the different commodities that your organization is transporting in the charge logics. So in this case, these are in this environment, it looks like they're all set towards crude oil for the most part. But these can be customized and used in your custom charge logics. So let's go ahead and we're going to come up with one. We're going to call it test chain up variable, and we are going to set it to be on the rate sheet. There is the option to have these set on the invoice, so when you create an invoice, it'll prompt you to say what should this variable be when calculating out the different pricing on that, which can be useful if you have customers that are just barely different on one variable. But typically you don't need to use this. There are a few off cases. We're going to go ahead and use the rate sheet variable here, which means that it'll be set on the rate sheet. So if I come and create it, you can see that it now shows up on our list. If you want to delete one, I'll delete this previous one that was made. I'm going to go ahead and click on delete. You are not able to delete the pre-built ones that are added in for you, just the ones that you create, and there really isn't anything else to it. So this is the name and its value, and everything will be set in other parts of accounting management that we'll go over. So now that we've created an accounting variable, which in this case we call test chain up variable, let's go ahead and show how they get used. So underneath charge logic, I'm going to create one, and we'll call it test chain up. And instead of doing something complicated, I'm going to make it so this chain up fee is always applied. So let's do this. Let's come into here, and we clicked on add formula. And underneath add formula, we can come in, and it's not going to be a driver measurement. We need to scroll through here into our accounting variables, which we'll see test chain up variable. We can also click in the search bar and start typing in, and it'll limit it down. It'll always keep the number since that's used pretty commonly, but we found test chain up variable, and we're going to take that and we're going to multiply it by the number of chain ups, which could be 0, could be 1. This is a different way you could potentially go about setting up this logic. But this test chain up variable is now used as a logic, or in one of these charge logics. So if we go into a rate sheet, we'll go back into these test rates and manage. Underneath the variables tab, we do now have the test chain up accounting variable. It is grayed out because it is not being used currently. But if we were to change our chain up that uses the LoadCall standard method of calculating it, and scroll down here to test chain up, the one that we created, there is now an error on the rate sheet because that variable has not been set. So now we could come into here and we could put in, the value that is used in this case. So it's important to name these so that they are easily recognizable and make sense. And you'll notice up here that the other chain up method, or the logic that we were using, is now grayed out and is no longer used. So the value is still there, but it is no longer used because we are using this accounting variable, test chain up variable. And you'll notice also that if you delete it, it's going to say cannot delete it. It's being used in a charge logic. And so you'd have to come in here to the charge logic. And if you try and delete this, you can't do it because it's being used in a rate sheet. So the system is pretty well protected against accidental deletion of quite a few of these cascading variables. So in order to delete this charge logic and therefore the accounting variable, you would have to go back into the invoices where it's used into those rate sheets and switch to a different logic in order to delete and clean out some of these things. So there's no accidental deletion in these cases. And that pretty much wraps up accounting variables and accounting management in general.